Today, we're looking at ZEDEDA's full stack solution for Kubernetes at the edge. All right, so we're logged into a ZEDEDA enterprise, and we're here at the dashboard that we all know and love. Let's jump straight over to edge nodes. And I want to pause here for just a moment because this is so important in dealing with Kubernetes at the edge. Right? Kubernetes was designed for the cloud. It was designed for the data center, where you have all of the things that you can expect in a data center, right? Lots of compute resource, you have physical security, power, cooling, connectivity, all the things you get in a data center. The distributed edge is very different, right? These devices might be out in the middle of nowhere, might be very diverse in terms of the hardware. There might not be physical security, right? You might have a padlock and that's all your security. So what happens if somebody walks away with the device? What happens if somebody plugs into a physical port? What happens if the device is buried somewhere where I can't touch it and the connectivity is intermittent? So a very different world at the distributed edge. And this is where ZEDEDA really shines, right? This is what ZEDEDA has been doing for years. So all these nodes you see here, I've installed EVE-OS on them, wired them up, and that's it. I never have to touch them again. They get everything they need through their outbound connection to ZEDEDA Cloud. Okay, so we have the devices. Let's get Kubernetes going here. We'll jump over to Edge Kubernetes, clusters, and we have a few here, but let's create our very own. So we'll go to Add New. We'll give it a name, RB Clusters fine. Tags, this is really important. Right? At the edge, you're not dealing with giant 100 node, 200 node clusters. You're dealing with a whole lot of little clusters. I might have 5,000 clusters, but each of them is just, a 1 node or a 3 node or up to like a 10 node, right? These are lots and lots of little clusters doing their job at the edge. There's got to be some way to organize these things, right? Like I want to deploy this app to these 800 clusters over here, and this app goes to these 200 clusters over here, and so on. Tags are the way to do that. It's just key value pairs. You can put in whatever you want here. I'm going to say function Nginx because Nginx will be our test app that we'll be showing here. Again, you can group these by location or capacity or whatever you'd like. This cluster prefix, this is for intra-cluster communication. Right? Kubernetes is very chatty. The nodes constantly want to be checking on each other, making sure everybody's clean, everybody's healthy, and so on. This is the IP space for that. Generally don't need to put anything here. You can just leave the default, but if you want to change it, you can. Let's hit next. We have the cluster parameters. Let's actually get some nodes in there. We'll go in our kube demo project. And here, let's grab this PPHP bot, that in there. The adapter here, again, this is for the intra-cluster communication. This is for node-to-node communication. Here it doesn't matter a whole lot. We're just building a single node cluster. But in a multi-node cluster, you really want a dedicated NIC for this. You want it on a dedicated switch between those nodes. Again, Kubernetes is pretty chatty. Best to give it its own connection. Let's hit next. We get our summary screen, let's add it. All right, and this is a dev environment, so we see that red message. The cluster is here, the cluster will come up successfully. Kubernetes takes just a few minutes for a cluster to build. While that's cooking, let's take a look at one of the existing clusters. We'll go to this 3-node cluster over here, RB Cube cluster. And we get a dashboard here. So here we can see the dashboard overview. We can get very detailed with this. We can see the events, right? It's a full dashboard. If you want to go to more traditional controls, if you want to use kubectl, you can do that. And you can do it in a very secure way. Right here, we can open a shell right in the browser and have kubectl go through ZEDEDA Cloud. Here, we'll just run some simple commands. We'll do a get nodes. Right, there are the 3 nodes. They're up, they're happy. We can get the pods on here as well. There's not a lot going on since we haven't deployed anything yet, but we can see the orchestration itself. We can see the ZEDEDA agent on there. We can go in and we can grab some logs out of these two, right? I mean, anything that you can do with kubectl, you can do here. Now, if you don't want to use this shell, if you don't want to use this directly in the browser, you'd like to use your own terminal, you can do that too. Up here, just download the kube config. That will let us open this up in whatever terminal you'd like to use. Okay, we have the nodes, right? Very easy to deploy those. Just get EVOS on them and wire them up. Never have to touch them again. We have the cluster. We saw how easy that is to create and how easy it is to monitor that with the dashboard or with traditional controls. Oh, and just a side note, I've done all this through the GUI. You can also do this programmatically. You can do this with Terraform. You can do this with our APIs. ZEDEDA is an API-first company. So with that, let's actually get some apps installed on this cluster. We'll jump back over to here and we want Kubernetes Marketplace. So this looks a whole lot like the ZEDEDA Edge App Marketplace, which is a good thing. It's really easy to add your apps here. So here in the upper right corner, we can just upload and you would just drop in your manifest in any kind of standard format. Helm charts are far and away the most common for this. We'll cancel that because we already have one. You can even hook this up to a repository full of Helm charts and just pull them all in automatically. But here, we're going to install this Nginx Hello chart. Choose your version, we'll install it. Give it a name and title. Where are we installing this? Which project? I'm going to put this on Kube Demo. And let's put it on that 3-node cluster. We'll say next. And something kind of cool here, if you want to make last-minute changes to the Helm chart for this specific deployment, you can do that. Right? This is actually editable. We'll just make an arbitrary change. And you can see those changes. I like it split. All right, we can see what's been changed there. Okay, let's hit next. We get our summary screen. Let's make it happen. Okay, so we've got the app installed. If we look back at the cluster here, we'll go to that cluster dashboard. And we can see there it is, one deployment. And we can see it's up, it's active, it's already running. This is Nginx. I mean, we can actually go to the page. And there we go. We get our happy Nginx welcome screen. Okay, so we've seen how easy it is to deploy an app, right? You just drop your Helm chart in place and tell where you want to install it. And this is great for deploying an app on a cluster. But if we want to do this en masse, right? If we want to do this at scale, roll it out to 500 clusters, and have our true CI/CD, where if the Helm chart changes, the clusters change, the actual installation changes, there's a better way, right? That's GitOps. That's what we'll do next. But first, let's remove this guy. We'll just reinstall it using GitOps. So we'll go up and delete. Yes, it's okay that we're deleting it. GitOps, again, the idea here is instead of just putting a Helm chart into ZEDEDA Cloud once, we're going to tell ZEDEDA Cloud to monitor a location wherever that Helm chart lives, right? So we can put that Helm chart up in a repository somewhere, and ZEDEDA will constantly monitor that repository, monitor that Helm chart for any kind of changes. If the Helm chart changes, ZEDEDA Cloud will immediately push that out to all clusters that are associated with it. So the first step in doing this, let's group our clusters, right, so that we can associate the repository with them. We'll go to cluster groupings. It's very well named. And let's add a new grouping. We'll give it a name. We'll give it a project. Next. Okay, so in that project, which clusters would we like to include here? And that's where those tags come in. Right, we created that function Nginx tag. Right, so we don't want the entire project, all of these clusters. We just want a few, the ones that match this tag. Let's add it. And we can see that narrows it down for us. All right, so these are the clusters that should be running Nginx. Let's hit next. We get our summary screen. Let's add it. Okay, so now we have a cluster group. Let's hook this up to a GitOps repository. We'll go into GitOps repositories, click Add New. And so let's give it a name and title. The repository we'll be using is on GitHub. Now we can actually take a look at it here. It's Rob ZEDEDA kube config, and it looks just like a Helm chart. Right? You have your chart, your values, your templates. That's what we're going to tell ZEDEDA Cloud to connect to. Coming on back here, we'll put this in kube demo. So the URL, you can use HTTPS, which you would probably do for a public repository, or SSH, which you would probably do for a private repository. This one's private, so we'll use SSH. We're going to watch the main branch. We'll give it the path. It was under nginx hello. And it's yelling at us right now because there's no authentication, right? If it's SSH, there has to be authentication, so it thinks it's HTTPS. Let's give it some authentication. You can add your own secrets here. For HTTPS, your username and password. For SSH, of course, your keys. I already have a secret uploaded. Let's hit next. All right, so where do we want to deploy this? We can deploy it to all clusters in the project. We can pick individual clusters, but let's use that cluster group we just created. We get our summary screen and let's deploy. So if we jump back over to our cluster dashboard, we can see that deployment is up and running and happy. Okay, so that's great. We've rolled it out to many clusters all at once, but what if something changes? Right, so let's go back to the repository and open up the values YAML. And we can see that this is set to run only a single replica. Why don't we change that to 3? Right, and this is a relatively simple change, but this could be anything in the Helm chart, right? This could be a new update of the app or whatever else. We'll commit that. And ZEDEDA Cloud is polling this repository again every 15 seconds. As soon as it detects the change, it's going to push that down to all of the associated clusters. Let's head back to the cluster dashboard. And we can see it's already running 2 and it's creating the container for the 3rd. And so what we've seen today, we've seen how ZEDEDA really is a full stack solution for edge Kubernetes. We manage the edge devices directly, just get EVOS on it and you're done, right? Disparate hardware, no physical security, you're set. We've seen that it's very easy to get Kubernetes up and running on this, to build a cluster and to monitor your clusters. Whether you're doing this whole thing manually through the GUI or programmatically with APIs or Terraform or the CLI. And we've seen how easy it is to deploy Kubernetes applications in a couple different ways, right? One kind of traditional, just give it the Helm chart and deploy. And the second with GitOps, so that you can deploy this to many clusters all at once and have it be reactive to changes in near real time. Thanks for watching.